Hi everyone, my name is JJ, and today we're hosting Forrest, who is a professor at Northwest University, and we're going to hear from him. And without taking more time, I would like to Forrest to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about what he does.
Thanks, JJ. I am a professor of community development, and I've done quite a lot of community development in different places in the world. I'm also the host of a podcast called Earthkeepers, and in that podcast, we talk about the intersection of the needs of creation and how to care for creation and how human flourishing can coexist with the flourishing of all beings.
Thank you. I was actually we got an opportunity to be on his podcast a few weeks ago, which is really exciting. So we'll go into the questions. One is, what has shaped your love for Earth care, and why is it important?
I grew up kind of a wild child, had a lot of opportunity to be in the woods and spend summers just roaming in nature. It was a privileged childhood in that sense. Just a lot of the beauty of creation filled most of my life. And when I went to college, I was thinking that I would pursue that somehow. That love of nature and creation really had some place in my vocation. Unfortunately, I got a little bit sidetracked, a lot sidetracked actually, by maybe the predominant evangelical notion that God died for people, not for the mountains and the trees. And I had someone say that to me actually, and I believed that, and redirected my course to really be taking care of people. So that's how I ended up in working against poverty, advocating for the marginalized. So I didn't lead an awful life. It was a great life, but all along the way, I felt something was missing, thinking, where does creation fit into this? And I think it was really in rediscovering a different approach to creation, and in particular as God sees creation. And especially from my Native American friends, began to really understand that there's a different way of being in and with creation. And so that really set me free to understand that development involves people, and it involves the environment as well. And to help one helps the other to flourish.
I like that. I think you're not alone. Like growing up, even at the education I got, of course we had lessons in science and how to take care of the environment, but there's no emphasis of that interdependence, environment and human life, and how either the flourishing of the other leads to flourishing of people, or the destruction of the environment actually leads to low quality of life. So I like that you build that together, and you can exist without the environment, a healthy environment.
I think people are losing patience with a view that creation is not important, in great part because so many people understand God through creation. That's God's revelation to them is through the created world, and to downplay that and make it less valuable, it doesn't make sense to people. And so I think people are rejecting that old way of thinking and understanding that there's got to be a different way forward.
Yeah, I think that we have to nurture it. I mean, God is not going to plant new trees. I think that it's our responsibility to take care of what He's given us and multiply that, with a mind that a better environment leads to a better society and the next generation. And that kind of leads me to the second question: how does clean and sustainable energy lead to economic development, social justice, and community flourishing?
Yeah, that's a big question. I can break it down. If I think about sustainability, for example, and economic development, I think that when when the very poor are able to actually not spend a big part of their income on energy, it allows them to spend it on things that actually can make their lives better. A lot of research has been done, and it's been shown that the very poor are actually really adept investors, right? If they ever have extra money beyond just basic needs,
Yep.
they'll do things like create new businesses or send their kids to school. They understand that it takes money to do those things, and so I think if you can allow people to repurpose their money that they would otherwise spend on expensive energy, it really does promote economic development. It sets people free to be creative and innovative. I think at the same time, when you talk about clean energy, on the one hand, sure, we want to produce energy in a way that doesn't kill creation, right? But I think also, probably most of us know that so many ways that people say prepare food among the rural poor involves toxic effects from the methods that they use. And so, if you're sick as a parent in a family, that means you're less able to care for your kids or to work and raise money. If you're a child and you have respiratory problems caused by, charcoal smoke, that means you miss out on days of education and fall behind in that way. And anyone who gets sick in the family such that they actually need medical care, well, medical care can wipe out the entire budget of a family and set them back, in a terrible way and in a discouraging way. So I think the emphasis on clean is also important, that we want to find ways that just don't hurt people and don't hurt the environment.
I like that, especially as you're talking. I can think of like women and children in my village back in Uganda, having to fight over this scarce resource now, that is charcoal and firewood. And the amount of time just it takes for them to go collect the firewood is like on average 2 hours every day out of the year. That's so much productivity just lost collecting this unhealthy fuel. And you're absolutely right. I've seen the difference between families that have access to clean energy and families that don't. Their income levels are totally different, because if you're spending almost 3/4 of your budget on energy, then you're never going to have money to save. So it's definitely a game changer. This brings us to the last question. In your opinion, what do you see as the major challenge to access to clean energy?
There are lots of them, but I would say, poverty itself is a challenge to clean and sustainable energy, because, when your kids need something, when you're trying to provide for them, it's almost a luxury to step back and say, all right, well, what would be the more sustainable or cleaner way, to employ energy here? I mean, we just don't understand, I think, how much it really takes in terms of capacity to think beyond what is. So it's easier to do what's familiar and what's easily accessible, because basic needs are really your focus. But I think that when people's basic needs are more thoroughly met, they have time to think about, what would there be better ways to cook my food or to light my home. But I think that the fear and even desperation that poverty induces in people keeps them from going there. So poverty itself is a barrier. I think also there's probably a misunderstanding about what clean and sustainable energy really is. The assumption is on the part of folks in the global north and the global south is that clean energy is really expensive, takes a lot of investment, a lot of money up front. We think in terms of, expensive solar arrays, or very big windmills to produce wind energy. But I think that really ignores the reality that that there's a lot of low tech, clean, sustainable energy options that people just don't know about, right?
Yeah.
And I, I mean, you and I have both seen examples of that. I think about these rechargeable solar lamps that have transformed the lives of so many families, because it extends the workday, makes people more productive, and allows kids to study at night
Yep.
when they
Yep.
otherwise wouldn't be able
Yep.
to. But that is not really high tech. I mean, it's actually quite available, and I don't think it's that expensive either when you look at it in the bigger picture. But I think, I've seen people building stoves in Uganda actually out of some, very readily available materials, and there were reflector stoves that were focusing the heat of the sun in a way that could, cook a meal. So to produce it was super cheap. It was materials that everyone had access to, and of course the energy of the sun was abundant in Uganda. So what was missing in most cases was just the know-how, that it was possible to actually build this thing, right? That you could do things for relatively low investment.
Yeah.
And I do think people in the West think the same way, right?
Yeah.
We want to be helpful. We want to, to alleviate the needs of the poor. But we too think, well, if we're talking about clean energy, then it's got to be big investment. But I think if we understood more sustainable and easily sourced kinds of energy production, we would invest our money in much different ways, and ways that actually would be transforming lives in amazing ways.
That's good, man. That's good. I think that's to me, that was the reasoning behind East African solutions, and the solution of building a biodigester. You have to ask yourself, are the people in the community be able to adapt to it? Are the raw materials needed to run a biodigester accessible? Which is yes, everyone has some sort of waste. Anything that is biodegradable, you just put it in the biodigester, and you get you get methane gas to cook your food, and which would otherwise be in waste. Or like I've seen, I know you've been in Uganda, and you drive past like piles of trash on the road, and in itself is causing diseases, because when it rains, all things flow into the river and people drink that water. So actually, like, biodigesters will solve some of the sanitary problems in society. And I think that, and you're very right, when people think about a biodigester or a clean energy, we think in terms of big high-tech complicated stuff. But I think the best solutions are the ones that are easily available in society and easily adaptable to local people, because it's a mindset. It takes people time to adapt to a new technology. So if it's so alien, they're not gonna adapt to that. So I really like that you brought out that aspect, that when people talk about sustainability and clean energy, they think about windmills and big solar panel projects. So I really like that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your passion for development and earth care. I love that balance, environment, but also human flourishing. And we need to engage that, especially because with all the statistics are showing that we're actually destroying the environment. So the earlier we do, the better we save ourselves or the next generation.
Well, it makes me a little curious about your work, and I know that you guys have this goal of creating a sustainability center, really. I mean, a center where you're going to be doing a lot of things, but it seems to me that one of the needs that you're identifying is the knowledge, right? Is the understanding that, first, environmental destruction is a problem, and then secondly, we all have a role in ameliorating that, in working against that. And I think that's a powerful combination. And it seems to me that the center you're going to be built is maybe the most powerful thing you can do is education, is helping people to understand that relationship.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. It it's both having access to the actual solution, but also the mindset and education and how to use the clean energy, how it's important and all that. I think if you just jump to the biodigester, I think you missed like 10 steps along the way. So yeah, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Again,
Thanks for having me.
It was a privilege to be on your podcast, and blessings to you.
Good. All right. Thank you, Jeje.
All right. Thank you.